And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavone, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, well, we're down to two teams left in this year's NBA postseason, and you could tell by maybe the tone of my voice. Yeah, it's been a long couple of days for both Johnson and I after having to recap what happened in the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll talk about that. I think Johnson, maybe for our best interest, we'll start that off for the show this week just to get it out of the way. But we also had the Western Conference Finals take place, and now we know this year's NBA Finals, and probably not the finals you kind of expected when the season started, and especially when the postseason started. You expected one of these teams to get here, but the other team not so much. But now we're here in the NBA Finals, and we're going to be crowning a first-time ever NBA champion this postseason.
Yeah, we can go straight into it. As a reminder, and a spoiler, not really a spoiler, the Oklahoma City Thunder do not have a championship. They do not claim the Super Sox title from 50 years ago. And the Indiana Pacers have never won a championship in the history of their franchise. So the seventh new champion in 7 years in a new era of NBA basketball. We've spoken about the salary cap in the second apron that was designed to kind of give parity to the NBA, and you're getting parity because since it's been implemented, it's been a new champion every single year.
So I think for you and I, and again, like I said, you could probably tell by the tone of our voices, it's been the Eastern Conference Finals probably took a very big toll on us for everything that happened. And I think let's just start off with that. The Western Conference, there's not there's just obviously a series that happened. Thunder pretty much controlled that series. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But let's start off with the Eastern Conference Finals and get that one out of the way so we don't have to reminisce about what happened these last couple of days. Pacers and the Knicks meeting in the Eastern Conference Finals. First time, I believe, since 2000 they met in the Eastern Conference Finals. They obviously met last year in the East semifinals. The Pacers won that series in 7. And obviously the story of that series last year, Johnson, was the Knicks got very injured towards the end of the series. And that, unfortunately, was the big reason why they were not able to get the job done in game number 7 at home against Indiana. So in this series, a lot was to be said. The Knicks were coming off that big, thrilling, shocking upset series win over the Celtics. The Pacers, they shocked the Cavaliers in their matchup. So both these teams coming off really impressive second round performances trying to get into the NBA Finals this season. And game 1, it looked like this was the Knicks game to win. They had a very comfortable sized lead. They were up 9 points with under a minute left. At one point, they were up 16 points or 14 points, whatever it was, with 2 minutes left in this game. And what probably goes down as one of the worst losses probably in Knicks history happens in this game. The Pacers just make some crazy shots. Aaron Nesmith especially making, what was it, like 3 or 4 3-pointers in the last minute, basically.
They scored 26 points over the last 5 minutes of the game. The Knicks scored, I believe, 12 points in the last 5 minutes, which people say, they should have scored more, but that's on pace to have a 28-point quarter. So like a 28-point NBA quarter is that's pretty good. 28 points over the course of the game. That's 112. That's just about league average.
Like for Knicks fans, like you and I, or even Knicks fans in general, like it was very reminiscent almost to Reggie Miller in a sense, where it was just some crazy ass, shots, and they just kept going in, and you just said to yourself, "This can't be happening again." And then when you're up 9 under minute left, you're like, "Okay, we're good, we'll be fine." And then a couple of missed free throws late in the game, also played a factor too. Game did go to overtime, keep in mind, so the Knicks did have a chance. The Knicks thankfully almost lost in the regulation. Halliburton made one of the more insane shots I've ever seen and took a weird bounce that somehow went in. It was ruled originally a 2-pointer. They checked to see if it was a game-winning 3. It remained a 2-pointer, so it did go to overtime. The Knicks did have a 6-point lead in that overtime period. There was a controversial goaltending call that was now called. It led to an ensuing 3-pointer for Indiana that now made it a 1-possession game. They went on in overtime to make a couple more big shots, and they would go on to win game 1, 138-135, pretty much from game 1, really taking out that home environment for the Knicks, in my opinion, because of the way game 2 went, and you were there for game 2. You said it was a very loud environment, but it felt like the vibe from the Knicks.
The energy was off.
It felt like the Knicks itself, they just didn't, respond to what happened in game 1. You could tell it even from where I was at home watching the game. You said something, you could just see it, that something was not right with the team. mindset going into game two. They kept battling back and forth to their credit, but they never could make the big shot and get the big stop when needed most. And because of that game one, catastrophic loss, the way they lost it, they then went down 2-0 after they lost game two by a final of 114 to 109. So they lost the home court advantage easily, and now they're going into Indiana for game number three. And game three wasn't look good either for this Knicks team. They were down 20 points at one point in the second half. But as we've seen a couple times already this postseason, the Knicks did fight their way back in this game, down by 20. They came on to win that game by the final of 106 to 100. Big storyline for the Knicks realistically was they were making some big shots, but their defense was playing big in that game. The defense for the Knicks in this series really was the telling point for who was going to win this series, because they always kept saying if the Pacers hit a certain thresh mark in points, then the Pacers will either lose the game or win the game. I think the number was 110. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think that was the number.
110 is correct.
They kept bringing up. So the Pacers, game one, 138. Game two, 114. Game three, they put up 100. So game four, the Knicks had some momentum after winning game three. They made it a 2-1 series lead for Indiana. But game four really just didn't go their way. Tyrese Halliburton having probably one of the more historical stat lines you'll see in a playoff game. A triple-double, did not turn the ball over once, 30 points in that game as well. Pacers go on to win 130 to 121, really putting the Knicks on the brink of elimination, trailing 3-1. As we've seen before, teams have come back from that 3-1 deficit to make this a series, and the Knicks looked in probably their best postseason performance all postseason outside of their clinching game against Boston was in game number 5 for them against Indiana. Their defense was on point. Jalen Brunson had himself a great game. Karl-Anthony Towns was playing a lot better after a slow start to the series. He was a big reason why they won game 3, but those two guys were huge for the Knicks in game number 5. They made this then a series. It went 3-2 going back into Indiana for game number 6. And Johnson, for the first half of this game, was pretty much back and forth once again. Both teams were trading shots. It was a 4-point Indiana lead going to halftime. But the third quarter of this game was a deciding factor in this victory for the Indiana Pacers, and the reason why they're moving on in the NBA postseason. A couple of big shots. Thomas Bryant, who you and I were stunned was making some of these shots because he's not a career three-point shooter. I think he had 9 points.
9 points in 5 minutes.
Yeah, 9 points,
5 minutes on 100% free, on 100% shooting from downtown. When he's a career 32% three-point shooter and less than 2 attempts per game. So, yeah, makes complete sense.
It just doesn't. What we said a lot for this Pacers team.
And you didn't even mention that Aaron Nesmith shot 91% from three through 2 games. Yeah. Granted, I know he's a great shooter. He shot 50% on the season, but he wasn't shooting 12 attempts in 2 games. He was shooting 4 or 5 shots a game. So he was making 2 or 5 a game, 3 or 5 a game. He was kind of trading off 2 for 5, 3 for 5. Right. He wasn't shooting 8 for 9. And he wasn't doing that in the regular season. So it was just a lot of things that went wrong for the Knicks. I think in Game 6 where they called Deuce McBride for stepping out bounds when he caught the ball in motion and he lands. That's a 6-point swing at that point, and it's a momentum changer. If the Knicks hit that, the environment changes a lot. It's now a 9-point game. There's 8 minutes left. There's plenty of time to come back because let's be real, a 15-point lead in the NBA nowadays isn't really anything. It's not like, I've said this a million times, it's not like it's 1995 or it's 2004 where you play mid-range games and the average score is 95 to 87 like we saw in so many finals games in the 2000s. It's a completely different game. You can have a 9-point lead vanish in 45 seconds. I could probably name 10 times in the past postseason I've seen a 9-0 run in under a minute. So a 9-point lead is nothing. And what's even more frustrating about that is, you didn't mention this, but in Game 4, you watch, I think it was either Halliburton or Nembhard come out. It was 69-65 in the third quarter. And the referee is staring at them, and he dribbles the ball out of bounds. It wasn't even like his foot grazed the line. Half his foot was out of bounds, and the ref is staring at him. They don't call the out of bounds play, and they end up scoring. So that's a 4-point swing right there.
Right.
And when you see stuff like that happen, where the ref was right in front of them, right, and it doesn't get called, It's just frustrating. Now, I'm not saying that the Knicks only lost due to bad calls because that would be in poor sportsmanship. But when you see stuff like that happen throughout the series, you get a little frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, we know from years past when it comes down to NBA refs, there's always some controversial calls that
Listen,
don't go
I
a team's
think,
way.
and this is going to sound crazy, but I
Mm,
think Tony Brothers does a great job. I think Scott Foster does a great job. There's a lot of other refs I'm not mentioning that do a great job. However, outside of Scott Foster and Tony Brothers, which are the two refs I know, which I think do a good job, and that's very controversial because Scott Foster is called the extender. So many players have problems with Tony Brothers. If I know the referee's name, if I hear his name and I was like, oh, this is going to be a bad night, that's a problem. That's a league wide problem.
right.
And you like fans, and it's not just me. It's just multiple diehard fans that do know this, and I think it's a problem that should be addressed. But I don't think ever will happen. But
It will never
we can be
really
optimistic.
happen. Yeah, I think you know what it is. It's kind of like from a baseball perspective, it's the same way. It's like if you know the umpire name, most of the time you know that name because it's not a good thing you know their name. And there are some good referees, and I like Foster too. I Brothers is fine and whatever, but I don't think you said it before. The biggest reason the Knicks lost this series was a couple things. I mentioned their team's defense. They were there for a little bit at portions of the series, but what we know the Pacers to be is they're a very good transition team. Once the Knicks score a bucket and Indiana's already down the court about to score again, like that, I think that was a big problem. The pace of play for the Knicks probably got in the way for them. They try to go quick as well, and they're not really a team that goes quick. I think that was a big issue for them in this series, and that was an issue for them last season as well. But I think another problem was realistically, if you look at the team as a whole, they had to make a lineup change during the series with starting Mitchell Robinson, which you were a big proponent of, and I think that was the right move to start Robinson over Josh Hart. I think the other thing is that Indiana constructed. They just a lot of big shots they made were like happening. A lot of times in the series where the Knicks would have, Karl-Anthony Towns and whatever guard would be on a Halliburton or a Nemhard or a Neesmith or a McConnell, they would have a switch where the center would then be playing the guard and at the 3-point line. And as we all know, you're pretty much on an island right there trying to guard one of these guys at the 3-point line. They're realistically not playing it as much. They're probably playing more towards the rim instead of trying to contest the shot. And the Pacers, we all know, are a good 3-point shooting team, and they took advantage of it. They had a lot of good pick and rolls in the entire series. Pascal Siakam also should be mentioned for what he did this postseason, and especially in this series alone. He got Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and for good reasoning. 2 big games from him in this series, and he was good for that the majority of this series. And he and the rest of this team deserved. I hate to say it, but they deserve the way they played in the series to make the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I really have to say more about this series is you can see some changes from the Knicks. I mean, I'm in favor if the trade is right to go out and get a Giannis Antetokounmpo, but I think you're gonna give up way too much. I think you have to extend Bridges, and Towns is going to get a better year, which I think he will have another year to get used to the defensive system that Tom Thibodeau has put in place because Tibbs isn't going anywhere. I think this is going to be his retirement job. If I had to guess here, I don't think Dolan is going to axe the guy who got to the conference finals for the first
Right.
time since he really became owner.
There's only one coach hire that you can make that would justify it. It's Mike Malone. Other than
Yeah,
that, you
Mike
can't
Malone would make
justify it.
complete sense, and I'm not saying we should, Tibbs should be fired for Mike Malone, but Mike Malone, I don't think is taking another coaching job. I think he's kind of dipping
He'll
his
take the
toes
year
in
off.
media.
Yeah.
I would hire him as an assistant coach right now. I would have hired him. The Knicks lost on Saturday. I would have hired him by Monday morning. I would have hired him 12 hours ago. Like
Right.
it would have been a done deal. But
Right.
obviously, maybe they're not looking at that. I think that the Knicks are going to look to make a signing or maybe a sign and trade. They have $7 million they can spend that keeps them under that second apron. So that's what they could spend this offseason. And no other team really can spend more than $7 or $8 million right now currently. So the Knicks are going to be looking to spend, I guess, $7 million on a 6-man and or trades for $7 million worth of 6-man. And if I'm the Knicks, I try to sign and trade for Chris Paul and Julian Champagnie. You need a secondary ball handler because Josh Hart cannot be asked to do that. with all the turnovers he's causing, he's he got I don't want to say he got exposed this series, but he really did.
He
His
did.
Yeah, he got exposed from a
His
passing perspective because his
his,
rebounding,
his
his
defense.
energy, his defense,
Well, I thought
whatever.
his defense was very hit or miss in this series.
It
In
was
my
hit or miss
opinion.
because he was asked to be. Listen, the guy won. He has the minutes award. He played the most minutes in the
Yeah.
entire season, so he's bound to get a little bit tired. But I think he just needs to. He was doing too much. Like he was asking to be the secondary ball handler because they run such an exhausting system. Because in the first quarter or second quarter, Josh Hart would be great, right? It'd be great. Then the second half would hit, and now they're starting to get a little shaky because even though Knicks play a lot of minutes, their pace of play is so much different. They're one of the
Right. And
slowest teams in the NBA, and even though they're kind of well traveled and they play a lot of minutes, they're not playing intense basketball. So that's why I think you need a secondary ball handler because they tried having Bridges bring the ball up that didn't work. They tried it with Hart, it didn't work. So I think you need a guy like CP3 who's looking for a ring, not looking for a starting role. Could play 25 minutes a game off the bench. That would be great. And you need another 3D wing, which you can trade. I think Champagnie is the target because they have Keldon Johnson, they have Devin Vassell, they have Jeremy Shohan there. So there's so many forwards there and not enough minutes. I unfortunately think
and
Champagnie is the
right.
odd man out there, and I think he's extremely talented.
Keep in mind they have a couple first round picks as well this year,
They
so
do.
it's like they're going to, especially the number,
They might get
including
Ace
the number 2
Bailey.
overall pick. So it's like they're going to be active in the draft, and if they're not drafting someone, they're going to use those picks to try to trade for someone to make sure that they can get to the postseason this year. Because the Spurs, right now constructed, could be a playoff team next season in the Western Conference as long as
Oh, they
Wemby
should be.
can stay
They absolutely
healthy.
should be.
As long as
That'd be a
Wemby stays
shock.
healthy, they should
A
be a
full year
playoff
of
team next year.
Wemby and De'Aaron Fox should be 45 wins minimum in the West.
Right. So it's possible they do stuff like that. So I think that is definitely something to look out for the offseason. I think you'll see a lot more signing trades and stuff like that in the next couple of weeks once the NBA final concludes. And we already talked about one half of that NBA final, that being the Indiana Pacers. Let's talk about what happened in the Western Conference, Johnson. And oh man, this was not pretty, this Western Conference final. I can say that for sure. There was one close game in the entirety of the series. That was game 4. Thunder routed the Timberwolves in game 1. Game 2 was a little bit closer, but the Thunder still controlled the pace of play, and they were able to win game number 2. So they go to Minnesota up 2-0, and give the Timberwolves credit. They play one of the better performances in franchise history in the postseason, especially. They put up 143 points. They beat them by 42 in game number 3. Their defense was on par. Even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander said it from the get-go. They said they were just the more physical team from the get-go of this game. We were not prepared for that physicality up front. So they come back in game number 4, and that was a great game. Back and forth between the two. It got down to the wire, but the Thunder were able to hold on just by 2 points, take a 3-1 series lead heading back into OKC. And Johnson, they would deliver the final blow in this series. They beat the Timberwolves by 30 points in this one. The defense for the Thunder had been the biggest reason why they've gotten to this stage in the season, the reason why they won 68 games in the regular season, a reason why they've pretty much cruised throughout this Western Conference playoffs so far outside of that Denver series. And now they're going to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2012.
First time since James Harden was a 6-man. So 13 years later, they had to go defeat the ghost of I don't want to say the ghost of Kevin Durant because that'd be insulting, but they defeat the remains of Russell Westbrook, I guess, in the Denver Nuggets in their biggest challenge of the postseason so far. A series that went to 7 games, and realistically could have went either way. But we mentioned this on the last podcast that the reason why the Denver Nuggets lost was because of the turnover battle and the defense, and that's exactly what they brought this series. This series was a snooze fest compared to the Knicks, even though
Yeah.
it was the Knicks only went one more game technically. Each game was so close. I can't remember a game late in the fourth that the Thunder or the Timberwolves are playing where it's
It
like,
was
oh yeah,
game
this is a
4, and
close
that's
game.
it.
Like yeah, maybe game 4, like you said, every other game was a blowout. Where
Right.
it felt like Knicks Pacers for 4 of the 6 games came down to the final minute, and 2 of them came down to at least the last fourth quarter of the game.
Right.
And I don't know where the Timberwolves really go from here. Randall's going to
They're
have
in
to
a
be extended next year. Dante DiVincenzo is going to be a free agent.
Nasri's already
You
opting out, so you gotta look at into that as well.
Yeah, I don't know what you want to do with Nas Reed because clearly he's a great offensive basketball player, but I don't know what he really gives you on the defense.
And
Um,
he's gonna command a
if
lot of money too.
Yeah, and this is what I absolutely hate too. If Nas Reed could get $30 million, there shouldn't be a single Knicks fan complaining if we give Mikal Bridges 30 to 35. I'm sorry, like it's crazy talk where I hear multiple Knicks fans complaining about he's not worth $35 million because they think it's 2014 and it's like
Yeah,
wow, this is a super max deal. It's like no, like you
we're in a
have guys
we're
that
in a different era of basketball for
it's a
money.
different era, and the salary cap is going to go so much up within 3 years. So like, if they put him on a declining deal, kind of like what they did on a with Jalen Brunson or Mitchell Robinson, where they kind of front load his contract right now, and in 4 years he's making $31 million or he's making $28 million, and the cap has gone up by 30%. It's going to look like a genius move from the front office.
Right.
And but listen, people like to knock James Dolan, but he's done a fantastic job just paying the bills, staying out of operations, paying the bills. He's really rehabbing his public image here, and I think that's what the Timberwolves and the Knicks are in a similar situation because it's going to come down to how much salary cap tax is your owner willing to eat, and it's new ownership in Minnesota, so I'm assuming it's not
Right.
going to be a lot because and it's going to be the question we have with Boston too because if you just buy a franchise and you spend billions of dollars, you're going to want to get that money back. So you're not paying an exorbitant salary. That's it's not going to happen. But same thing with Boston. But I feel like the Knicks will eat it because this is James Nolan's passion project. It's not his money. Yes, it makes a lot of money, but it's not his money maker. He's got the Spear in Vegas. He's building. He's got other stuff in Chicago. He's got Radio City. So he has all these other ventures he's involved with. He's involved in building a Spear in maybe Saudi Arabia. Who knows if that's ever going to happen?
Probably will. I think I thought they confirmed that, didn't they?
Yeah, well, until ground has struck, I'm not going to really
That's
believe
fair.
it.
That's
So,
fair.
I'm a more, there's a lot of things guaranteed in life that don't end up
You're playing
happening.
devil's
So
advocate in a sense. Yeah.
it probably happened, but until it happens, let's just say it's hypothetical for now.
Right.
But yeah, the Timberwolves are going to have to decide of who they want to actually, bring back and extend. And I really hope they do extend Randall. He had a great postseason outside of really the Western Conference Finals where he was extremely hot or cold. He either gave you 25 points or he gave you 5 points. Nothing really in between. But it looked like to me that Randall had a better series than Anthony Edwards. And, it's not a knock on Anthony Edwards. He could be a future face of the league. He's only in his early 20s, but
Yeah,
no
I
one
think
really had that on their bingo card.
I think that's been the talk of the Timberwolves these last 2 years. It's like everyone's just waiting for Anthony Edwards to take this next step to be the face of the league because guys like Curry and LeBron
They're
and
aging
Durant,
out.
they're all on the way out
And
pretty
everyone's
much.
assuming he's going to be Tatum, but Tatum's
And
be gone for a year. We don't know
right,
what he's going to look like. So
Tatum's going to be out for next season. So Anthony Edwards is like that guy you're looking at, like, okay, this
this
is
is going
like
to sound crazy,
this is
but
him.
it could be Cooper Flag 3 years from now.
If as long as he pans out, yeah.
If Cooper Flag, listen, true 18-year-old, he was a true college freshman, monster year at Duke, and I say this all the time with these freshman prospects, like, oh yeah, don't take him just based off potential. Well, you're not only taking Cooper Flag based off potential, you're taking based off proven results too. Like Cooper Flag put up 19, I think 7 and 4 at Duke on almost 50% from the field and almost
Right.
40% from downtown. Like
Mm,
those are all American numbers at if you're a 24-year-old senior or if you're an 18-year-old freshman. He was all defense, I think, for the ACC too, but I'm not going to read too much into that. So this is a guy that not only has the potential, but he has the numbers to back him up too. So this is why he's such an exciting prospect. He is the level of an Anthony Davis. He is the level of a Kyrie Irving. He's this kind of can't miss. Also, Duke guy right there, Kyrie Irving, but can't miss prospect. Like when you think about it, what was Jason Tatum's year at Duke? It wasn't as good as Cooper Flag. I know
no,
he wasn't the consensus number one overall pick in high school or in college, but
man, he went number
it
three.
wasn't as good as Cooper Flag. And look how good he is. So it's going to be kind of interesting because they're kind of, I don't want to say similar builds, but I remember Jason Tatum being a skinny, lanky college forward, and it's kind of like Cooper Flag too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he develops, and he could be the future face of the league in 2 or 3 years because, like you said, it's wide open. All these guys are retiring or they're old, and there's the guys that we expected, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball. They haven't stepped up yet.
Yeah, and yeah, I think the NBA is going to be an interesting transition period once LeBron, Curry, and Durant all go. It's like who is going to be that face of the NBA? Is it Jokic? Is it SGA? Is it Anthony Edwards? Like we don't know. I don't know if anyone really has an answer for that right now. Like there's so many options you could pick it to be, but right now there isn't necessarily
You know what it kind
that
of
guy
feels like?
there yet.
It kind of feels like after Jordan retired in the late '90s, and
Right.
there was like this weird, especially even with USA basketball, because we're going to approach that too. There really wasn't a face of the league from like 1999 to like 2005. Does that make sense? LeBron was breaking out, and I think 2005 was his definitive breakout year. And he doesn't. I don't think he became the face of the league maybe until. I mean, you guess you had Kobe there, right? You had
Right.
Kobe there in the late
That's like
2000s, but
that's
he
like
was
probably
struggling
the
though in
guy. But it's
2004, 2005. That's his whole thing.
right.
Like Shaq had just left. They had just gotten their ass kicked in the finals, and Kobe really didn't become Kobe until maybe, or I shouldn't say Kobe didn't become a better version of himself until like 2008 in that Redeem team.
Right.
And by that time, LeBron James had already arrived. So you're going to see maybe a transition phase, and then it's going to be someone completely out of left field. That's going to be my guess.
Yeah. So I think we'll have to see what time will tell. But I mean, keep in mind. I mean, let's say if it is a guy like SGA, I mean, he could prove it in this NBA Finals upcoming in this upcoming week because the finals do start this week, and we have a first time matchup, obviously, with these two teams trying to win their respective first NBA championships. It's the Thunder and the Pacers, the 4 seed in the East, the number 1 seed, and the number 1 overall team in the NBA in the Western Conference, Indiana and OKC in this one. Johnson, what we'll do is we'll do what we've been doing most postseason. We'll pick the series and how many games the team will win in, and we will also be picking our NBA Finals MVP. I do have odds for the MVP if you would like to hear some. I think one's more obvious than the others, but there's still some interesting line movement for some certain players if you want to take a potential sneaker pick for this NBA final. So who do you have between OKC and Indiana?
The Thunder are going to lose game one, but win the next four.
You're expecting that one Indiana game, right?
I'm expecting the one Indiana game, and it's gonna come on the road in games 1 and/or 2. My preference is, or my guess is towards game one because it's happened in every other series so far. Again, it's a trend right now. It's not really a trend. It's more of it's an odd coincidence that's happened a couple times.
It's happened once, at least once, in every series in Indiana's had this postseason. It happened against Milwaukee.
So that's what I'm saying.
It happened against Cleveland, and unfortunately, it happened against the Knicks as well. Yeah.
So they're going to get one. They're going to get one. It's going to be on the road, but I think that Indiana likes to run and gun, but so does OKC, and the Thunder from top to bottom are way more talented. It is just a way more talented roster. You have Chet Holmgren, you have Jalen Williams, you have SGA, obviously potential face of the league MVP. I think this would cement him above Tatum if he wins this ring, because not only will he have a championship, just like Tatum, but he has an MVP over him too.
MVP, right?
Yeah, so if he wins Finals MVP too, then forget it. He's surpassed Tatum in only 2 years. And I was critical about SGA. I said 3 years ago we all decided to crown him out. Now I said no, let me see him do something first, because at the time where people start crowning him, he had never even made the postseason before. So now this is his time to really, it's time to put up or shut up. So give me Thunder in 5 this series. I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
And keep in mind, this could be the first of many for the Thunder because they have they have the great roster size and their contracts are relatively friendly towards them, but they have so many draft picks still incoming these next couple of seasons. Like they are set up for.
It's going to sound crazy, Nick.
Yeah,
and I really think it's going to happen. Even though they have all these team friendly contracts, let's kind of like pump the brakes right now and just take a second to talk about their contracts and everything. They are pretty much on, I think, club options all throughout 2025, 2026. So next year and the year after that, right? Then in
Mm,
2027 is where it gets dicey. You're going to have SGA potential supermax. You're going to have Chet needing to get paid. He's going to be an RFA. I'm sorry, they are all RFAs or club options next year. Excuse me. Chet's an RFA and Jalen Williams are RFAs. They're both going to get paid immediately. In
right.
addition to Shea's $40 million that year, and then you have to take Hartenstein too and pay him next year. He's a club option. So you are looking at potentially, you're going to be 80 mil over the cap. It's not going to be pretty.
Well,
And
keep in
I,
mind,
I
I
really
think
do think that they're going to trade those players and they're going to trade those, whatever for cheap rookies on expiring deals. And I think they're going to kind of like 2K it. If I think any GM could do it, it's going to be Sam Presti. He can
right.
2K this
That's what
franchise.
I was saying. I think even if they were to lose some of those players, at least they have the draft picks incoming, and they could be high draft picks in the draft because some of those franchises we don't necessarily know where their futures lie in the next couple of years. The Clippers are still, doing good now, but will they be good in a couple of seasons when, Harden's getting up there in age and Kawhi's getting up there in age? I'm pretty sure they have a Brooklyn Nets pick, if I'm not mistaken, as well,
They do.
upcoming. As I'm trying to think of the other teams they have in the. Do they have a Milwaukee pick? Am I right about that?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I think I think it's even if they were to lose some of these guys like a Hardenstein or whatever, like they're still fine in the sense where they could just because they've had a good history of drafting players. Like look at the team they constructed right now. It's been most of these guys have been draft picks in a sense. So obviously not all of them have been draft picks. SGA obviously wasn't their pick. He was a trade from Paul George. But guys like Jalen Williams were one of those guys that no one expected to turn out like this and pan out like this. And he has certainly panned out phenomenally for this team. And as you mentioned, he's got to get paid a nice, pretty penny in a couple seasons. So we'll see. I think this could be maybe the potential star of a dynasty if everything goes well and continues to work out for OKC in the next couple of years. I think for me, the story of this series is again going to be defense. I mentioned that for the Western Conference Finals preview. I think it's going to come down to the defense in this series as well because we talked about Indiana's, certain threshold they need to meet in order to win these games. But one thing they did well against the Knicks, and you and I probably both agree on this, was they forced a couple of big turnovers against the Knicks that really got them into a bad rhythm of things. If they could do that against OKC, it might work out in their favor. They got a lot of points off of turnovers in that Eastern Conference final. However, on the flip side of things, that's exactly what the Thunder does best so far this entire season. Their defense forces so many turnovers. They get down the court quickly, transition points, and they get points off of turnovers as well. So these two teams know exactly what to do in terms of defense and try to control and maintain that pace of play. I think it's going to come down to that defense entirely, and it will come down to, emphatically at the end if SGA wants to prove he is that guy right now, winning the MVP this year, leading the team to a 68 win season, and getting them now to their first final trip since 2012, he's got to prove it in this series. Like he is without a shadow of a doubt one of the best players in the entire NBA. He's already proven it with an MVP performance, but now can you prove it on the biggest stage with the championship on the line? I think the problem for Indiana, in my opinion, for this series is that the Thunder, as you mentioned, they're just so well rostered right now. This team, from top to bottom. The Pacers, don't get me wrong, have a lot of good players on their roster too. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to beat this Thunder team the way they are constructed right now. And I think the best thing for the Pacers, and I think you could probably agree with this as well. The best thing I think going for them is that they have a head coach that has been here before and has won a championship in years past, and that's Rick Carlisle. He knows how to beat a team that everyone expected to win. That was that Miami Heat team when he was on Dallas, and they pulled off that stunning upset to win the NBA Finals. So if there was ever a coach to maybe be a reason why maybe his team is able to get the job done against a team that looks superior, it's definitely Rick Carlisle. So maybe that is the one advantage that the Pacers have in this series.
It's a huge, yeah, it is a huge advantage. Like I 100% agree with you. Rick Carlisle is a proven head coach, and he's going to he's going to get them one. That's why I have him getting one.
Yeah,
He's going to be the sole reason why they get one game here.
I think for me, I'm gonna go with the Thunder in 6. I think the Pacers will get 2 games in this series. It just something tells me that Indiana is gonna get that one game as you mentioned, and then there might be a second game where the Pacers just their pace of play will maybe force the Thunder into some fits, and will be a big reason why things don't go well for them. So I will have the Thunder to win in 6 games, getting their first NBA championship. So if you're a Thunder fan, definitely hear this with precaution because we're both on the side of OKC. That could mean bad things for them. But
So, Nick, I have a question for you.
yeah,
And I know this is more Knicks related stuff, but I'm thinking about roster stuff for next year.
hmm.
Do you remember the second guard we took in 2021 alongside Deuce McBride?
The second guard.
Yes, he is a European.
No, I was thinking the first player that came to mind before you said European was Keels out of Duke. So I know it's not. I don't. I know.
No, it's not Trevor Keels, but we haven't assigned. We still have his draft rights. Rokas Jakubaitis from Lithuania, if you remember him.
Nope.
He just put up 13 points a game in EuroLeague. And again, I know that doesn't sound like much, but the top guy in EuroLeague only averages like 19, 20 a game. So could be a cheap option for us at the end of a bench next year. Just want to throw that name out there.
All right, fair enough. I'll keep that in mind.
Only reason why it's coming to mind because I know we got him from the Thunder. That's the draft pick that we got from the Thunder.
Right. Okay. That's fair. But yeah, I'll go with the Thunder in 6. To get their job done. I think it would be obviously it would be a catastrophic failure if they win 68 games, the best team in the West. They've pretty much dominated this entire postseason outside of that Denver series. And even then, they still kind of dominated because in Game 7 they just routed Denver in that second quarter from there on in. So Indiana has a tough hill to climb. They've beaten obviously already one seed this postseason. I just don't know if they're going to be able to be a second one. I think they, the what's the term, the rabbit's foot or whatever, the lucky.
The luck's
clover.
running out.
I think the luck at this point is going to have to run out at some point. You got through all this. You were the better team against the Knicks. I'm willing to admit that they played better than us for some portions of that series. I just don't know if they're going to be able to compete with this Thunder team on both sides. I'll give them 2 games to win. I just don't think they get the job done. I will go with OKC in 6 games to win the NBA Finals this season. Who do you have for Finals MVP?
SGA. It's his turn. It's his time.
It's gotta be SGA. I'm gonna go with you as well. I think if I had to pick someone outside of SGA,
if it's not SGA, it's gonna be Pascal Siakam. That's gonna be my take.
Oh, so the Pacers win, you said Siakam.
Yeah, the only way I don't see SGA winning is one, A, he gets injured, and B, if he does get injured, the Thunder are not winning this series without SGA. That's my take. Chet Holmgren's not going to win it. Jalen Williams isn't going to win it. Hartenstein's not going to win. As cool as that would be to see, but it's going to be Pascal Siakam. It's not going to be Halliburton. It's going to be Pascal.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Spicy P had a really good Eastern Conference Finals, and he's obviously already proven on the NBA Finals stage what he could do as well. Yeah, I was gonna say if it's not Alexander, I think the only reason he wouldn't win it is because he either gets hurt or he just has not a great series. But it's to the point where the Thunder are still fine because of the roster. Jalen Williams probably is the only other option I think on that team. I think that could win it. And for the flip side of things, I think it's probably easy to say Halliburton, but yeah, I don't mind the Spicy P pick. I think Siakam could win it if the Pacers pull this one off. So yeah, I don't hate that whatsoever. So yeah, we'll see how this NBA Finals goes down. Who will get the job done? Game 1 tips off on Thursday night. So be a very interesting NBA Finals we have upcoming. As I mentioned, both teams looking for their first NBA championship. Both teams are in their first NBA Finals appearance for the first time. For Indiana since 2000. For OKC since 2012. And then after that, Johnson, we have the NBA Draft, June 25th. So not too far away. We are getting ready for the NBA Draft, and that means for you and I, another mock draft coming for us this here on the show.
And I've admitted to being off my draft game the last couple of years because I haven't acted, the last 5 years I really haven't paid attention because The Knicks have been good for half a decade now, which is
I know.
crazy to think about. But this year, I've gotten really into it because the players are intriguing. I think there could be three players that could be taken number one overall, and one player is going to be this year's. How do I put it? The guy from the Knicks, Nick. You know, he was the third guy of the Duke trio,
Cam
Cam
Reddish.
Reddish.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah, no, we
you
had this
brought this up. You had the
brought this up to
conversation
you
yesterday.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of these guys is gonna be Cam Reddish.
Which, by the way,
I'm not gonna say who it is, but
great show yesterday on
yeah,
Staten Island.
yeah, great card show. I know we had mentioned it before. We're gonna advertise the next one, which is June 12th,
July
at
12th.
St. Thomas. July 12th. Excuse me. Thank you for that. St. Joseph St. Thomas. So we will be at that one as well, but we'll advertise that as it gets closer. But yeah, it was one of these guys will be Cam Reddish. I'm not going to say who it is yet, but one of these guys is going to be the next Cam Reddish.
Yeah, I know. I know who it is. We already, as we mentioned, we talked about this yesterday. But for the listeners at home, definitely tune in to the mock draft show to see who Johnson is talking about for for this upcoming NBA draft. I think the only good thing about it for us is that we're probably guaranteed to get 2 picks right. I think, in my opinion, number 1 should be right.
And number 2 actually is
Number two could be tricky, but I think
number 2 is going to be really tricky actually because
the
Spurs are infatuated with the guy from Duke, Common, the center. So it's going to be interesting.
They want a center?
Yeah.
So it was what? Wembanyama the 4?
Yeah, maybe. Like, listen, give him spot minutes.
That just sounds weird, but all right. Hey, listen, they're in a transition period. No more Popovich as the head coach. He's still with the franchise, but he's not the head coach anymore.
Well, they're thinking that they could be the new Twin Towers, maybe like Sampson and Ralph Sampson and Olajuwon. Yeah, so that's what they're thinking it could be. So
I mean, that worked out definitely for Houston, so that makes sense. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, once the NBA Finals concludes, you and I will be back on the show to recap the finals, and then we will be back on the next time for the NBA Draft Mock Special. So, we'll have to see how many picks you and I get correct. Probably won't be too many, but we'll have a good time regardless of what happens on that evening, deciding who goes to the next NBA franchise. And we'll see what the Cooper Flag sweepstakes have in common. We already know Dallas is the number 1 pick. They probably will get Cooper Flag, and then from there on in, we'll see who the rest of the teams in the NBA first round will be taking in their first round selections. So definitely tune into the show in the next couple of weeks. But as for us tonight, that is going to do it for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. We're down to the final 2 teams in this year's 2024/2025 NBA season. It is going to be the Indiana Pacers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder in this year's NBA Finals. Who will get the job done and raise their first ever NBA championship banner? Will it be Indiana or will it be OKC? We'll have to tune in to find out. As I mentioned, game number 1 tips off Thursday night, 8:30 on ABC. We'll see who gets the job done and gets their first ever NBA championship. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by my co-host Andrew Johnson for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.